Hi, everyone. This is Michael McNerney with Martech Record. I'm going to give this about 10 seconds because there's usually a little bit of a lag between hitting start and people being able to join. So bear with us for a quick second. Okay, welcome. I'm Michael McNerney. I'm the publisher of Martech Record. For those of you who may not know, we're an independent trade publication that covers the convergence of marketing, content, and commerce. And that often takes place at publishers that are driving commerce revenue. And we're here today to talk about kind of how that has gotten a lot more complex over the last few years. I will say, I want to set this up a little bit and say, as someone who has worked at a large enterprise publisher in my career in a similar role to Camilla, this was probably the most informative prep session I've ever had, kind of being reminded a lot of the challenges and then intimidated by how those challenges have proliferated over the last few years. So we're going to talk today a little bit about what the challenges are. We're going to treat this a little bit as a case study, look at Vox Media and the challenges Camilla faces, and then how they've solved some of those problems with NucleusLinks. And we're going to just talk through it with Cornelius and Camilla. We're going to do that. We're going to have quick intros. We're going to have a kind of 30 or so, however long it's minute discussion. And then we'll have time at the end for some questions if you have them. Please, at the bottom of your screen, there is a black bar. In that bar, there's a Q&A section. If you have a question, pop it in there. Don't put it in the chat because I'm not capable of doing two things at once and I will miss it. So please put it in the Q&A. And if you have a question after this and forget to ask or were too intimidated or for some reason think of it later, we will be gathering in a private Slack channel for this particular event, and Camilla and Cornelius will join us there and we'll be able to address your questions there. So thanks for joining us. That's our framework here. And I'd like to kick it off just first by thanking NucleusLinks for supporting this. As I said, this really was the most informative prep session I've had prepping for these lunch and learns and these webinars that we do. And as an operator, a former operator, I guess a current operator too, I learned quite a bit. So thank you for that. And thank you for your support here. Camilla, if you don't mind introducing yourself, and then Cornelius, and then we can kick this off.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Hi, I'm Camilla Cho. I'm the SVP of Commerce, heading up affiliate over here at Vox Media. Been at this for several years now and oversee the affiliate business line across the portfolio of the Vox Media brands, which includes The Strategist, The Cut, The Verge, Eater, and Pop Sugar. So in charge of trying to monetize the shopping content that is produced by the talented editors and writers at those brands and publications and monetizing them to our best abilities. So with that, I will kick it off to Cornelius.
Thank you, Camilla, and thank you, Mike. Cornelius Frey, CEO of NucleusLinks, which is part of Affinity Global, where together with 500 colleagues around the world, we help publishers and advertisers along the value chain maximize revenue and bottom line. Calling out from Berlin, we have our colleagues across Asia, India, Europe, and the US, of course. Thunderstorm over there at Camilla, but all good. We can see you. At NucleusLinks, we help the world's greatest affiliate publishers like Vox, New York Mag, and so on, do two things really, focus on two things. Stop bleeding money by replacing ancient yield management techniques with AI and helping them spend their time and resources better on what really matters by automating the chores in the background. Great to be on here.
Thanks for being here. And for those of you who don't know, we're in New York where it is 99 degrees right now. And I sincerely hope that the lighting going on and off at Vox is not an indicator of the whole grid about to go down. So if it does, we'll get back to you. But I think we're all right. So Camilla, I'd love to start with you on this. I have to be honest, we spent, an hour or so prepping for this, and the complexity of commerce, kind of the commerce operations, to put it broadly, um, was something that, like, having set out the enterprise world, th 3 or 4 years now, really surprised me at how complex the challenges have gotten in terms of just the pure operational challenges. And I'd like you to kind of set the table for us. Like, what has changed over the past few years in terms of operations, ensuring that you can monetize your content correctly?
Yeah, it has gotten, as you noted, a lot more complex and complicated even since I started doing this. So what used to be a fairly simple decision tree, if you will. So here is a product that we are writing about, and now should we link this through skim links, or should we go directly through Impact Radius or Rakuten or CJ or whatever the affiliate network might be? And it was kind of a binary decision, more or less. And that decision tree has proliferated into times 10. So for almost any given product, not only are you faced with a decision of trying to figure out, well, which retailer should I link to? And I think most publishers have the option of being able to provide multiple buy buttons or links for their readers. So, you don't have to shop on Amazon. Maybe you're anti-Amazon. Maybe you want to shop somewhere else instead. But even for any given retailer, there are so many different networks you could link that through. And so that is where a lot of complication has come into place. There are tons of CPC networks, many of which I was not even familiar with until I started working with NucleusLinks. So there's just so many more that I thought. And so there's affiliate networks, there's sub networks, there's CPC networks, there's hybrid models, and there's just a lot of options out there. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do is figure out, how are we going to generate the most revenue? And sometimes it could be just sticking to that simple linking through Impact Radius and collecting the 12% or whatever it might be. But sometimes it might be more beneficial to go through a CPC network and collect that 85 cents, 95 cents CPC rate. And maybe that's going to be good, but maybe that budget is going to run out, I don't know, after $10,000 has been spent through that network. And so we don't have visibility into when that is going to expire. And so sometimes it gives us a lot of pause to, like, hey, should we link through the CPC network? Budgets are limited. We have no visibility into when we might have to swap this link back, which means that someone, a human, has to go in and now swap out the link somewhere else so that we are actually now monetizing if that budget ran out. So these are the types of like complexities. And there is some level of automation, but there's also a ton of just like manual operation that is handled by humans on our part. And there is just no way we could optimize across so many links, so many different articles on multiple sites, day after day after day, week after week. And so I knew there had to be a better way. And so that is kind of when I started actively looking for ways to partner to try to solve some of these pain points.
Just to kind of reiterate, to make sure I understand, as recently as 3 or 4 years ago, it was a pretty straightforward strategic decision. It's, these are people I want to go direct with for whatever strategic reason. These are people I'd rather have a sub network handle. And now the options are, have exponentially increased because of CPC networks, different prices, different potential to get revenue. But the complexity of how to serve that has gone even farther up. Is that kind of like a reasonable
Yeah, that's a good summary. That's a good summary. And I think the one other thing I would add is, I think also 3-4 years ago, I might have also been a little bit dismissive, if I might admit, of like, well, what's an additional few cents here and there going to yield? And as the business has grown, and there's more pages and more links to consider, those few cents could actually add up quite a bit. And so just doing the rough math, I knew that if we could see even small improvements across the board in the effective EPC, I knew there was going to be a good impact to be had here.
Yeah, it feels like we're in a shifting moment in kind of, the publishing model where it used to be, okay, there's commerce revenue out there, let's just go get it. And now it's, okay, how do we get that revenue efficiently? And you may be able to get a higher CPC, right? But like, if that means hiring an additional person, that doesn't seem like a great way to go get those dollars.
That's right. That's right.
And so, how have you addressed that problem?
Yeah, I mean, basically, initially, we took kind of a manual approach with a little bit of automation. We set up waterfalls in our backend system of prioritizing certain networks or certain merchants that should come prioritized. And so even if a human tries to link somewhere else, our backend CMS will know, you know what? No, you should link this through X versus Y. And so there were some simple things that we could do on our end, but that was just not going to get to optimization at every link and every product level. And a lot of times we were also taking advantage of CPC budgets, like I talked about before. We worked with a few other networks, and it was great because initially we're like, these are great CPCs. We really want to take advantage of them. But as I kind of alluded to earlier, we ran into a lot of situations where the getting was good for way too short. And then there was this mad rush to figure out, oh my God, the budget ran out. We got to revert those links back. So now it's a question of like finding all those links and then manually swapping it back to a different URL structure, different parameters. And it just caused a lot of frenzy and a lot of manual updating. And as we all know, when humans do a lot of these tasks on a daily basis, also in kind of a rushed environment, mistakes are bound to happen. And so sometimes we would mess up and botch links and we will link it to places we shouldn't be linking it to. And so it just really got to the point where there just had to be a more automated solution to help with operational efficiencies and obviously ultimately getting to better revenue performance.
I'm sure there's a lot of publishers watching who are like, oh, I feel validated. It's an issue we're facing as well. Cornelius, on your side, what made you identify this problem, right? All good businesses solve a problem. And, when did you see this? And, what were the kind of steps that you took leveraging kind of new technology to help solve problems like Camilla's?
Yeah, so in the affinity group, there are a number of networks under the holding umbrella. And what you both said, we realized by running those networks how momentous the changes in how affiliate budgets are spent and invested, how momentous of changes have been over the last 2 to 3 years. And we saw how little publishers set up moved in lockstep with those changes. And I think Camilla put it very well. So first of all, there's not just a primary network and maybe 2 CPC networks, and let's maybe try switching them out once in a while. We see and we saw for our publisher partners, there's now literally dozens of networks who have budget against any given individual merchant, and that's not even well orchestrated budget. Those budgets come from affiliate, social, search, performance, display. So it's a really big, wide net of budgets and different networks bidding out there. Very few of even the world's best affiliate publishers have had until recently the clarity which Camilla just showed in recognizing that first step. And then absolutely the second step, it's not about, okay, there's lots of them, now let's find out what the best one is. What we've seen firsthand from also running our own networks, the bidding behavior is changing massively. There isn't just network A puts EPC of X against merchant Y at infinite 0 clicks. Those bidding behaviors can change by the minute. The earnings, the cost per click can change by the minute. So we just found out if we cannot handle this manually, then chances are no individual publisher can or should have to be handling this manually. And it was an iterative process. It started on a whiteboard 3 years ago, and now we work with some of the greatest content and deals and vouchers and buy now, pay later players, and keep on evolving as the market evolves. What's very clear is no individual publisher could or should be building the technology to keep up with these changes all by themselves.
It's amazing how many people you talk to who, when you ask how they started the business, it's usually solving their own problem first and then realizing that other people might have that problem. When you talk to publishers, I'm curious where you start. You know, you're solving both a revenue problem and a cost problem. And do you find it's more helpful to talk about the revenue or the cost, or does that depend on the publisher?
Typically, it is still on the revenue side, where making more money go into an often shrinking pool has a very powerful allure. And those conversations start typically on the basis, say, you know, let's create a joint understanding about the deep pool of networks bidding for clicks on those merchants. The second part of the conversation typically goes around, well, that's very nice, but I don't possibly have the resources internally to sign up to 30 more networks. So we talk about a solution how to onboard within, you know, hours rather than months, publishers to a whole host of additional networks easily and quickly through our Network Plus offering. And then we get into the nitty-gritty of how you get into the quasi RTB setup. Of course, there's no real-time bidding as there is in display. What NucleusLinks does is we constantly send out discovery clicks to the different networks that train an inference model. And as a result, for each individual publisher know on a per-click basis which network to send that click to. That is the revenue basis, the first part of the equation, which you ask about. There we typically already see double-digit revenue increases right away, right out of the box. And then, of course, do we continue the conversation with publishers who say, I have really important work to do, even not in a Google Zero scenario. I need to make sure I have a content offering that keeps drawing my users back because I have the best buying guides, the best vouchers, the best deals. And I have a setup where I can focus my team's effort on creating the greatest direct partnerships with those brands where it's worth it. And everything else, they say, please help me automate tracking broken links, unifying reporting in the background from all backend, from all the different networks, rather than having 10 different Excel sheets flying around. And it's really often from the most sophisticated publishers, even those a plea for help to say, I have a fantastic team. This team ought to be spending time on value-add activities, not on mind-numbing repetitive manual tasks. And there, it's an efficiency part. It's not necessarily a cost part, but making sure so those folks can focus on getting the greatest audience and getting the greatest partnerships for those involved. Those are the two sides of the equation.
I feel a AI conversation coming on. Before we go there, though, I do want to go back a little bit and raise us up a little bit, because you mentioned Google Zero, right? And I don't think we can have a publishing conversation with, you know, a publishing leader, an operator, without kind of talking about, you know, the last 18 months and Google and the shift in traffic patterns. So Camilla, let's just start from the top. You know, how has Vox reacted to the shifts in the Google algorithm, the reduction in, I presume, the reduction in traffic, and you know, how have you kind of tackled that specific problem?
Yeah, I mean, it has been an ongoing struggle. It has been a lot of ups and downs. You think you've figured out some optimization tactic that's going to get you back on track, only to be hit with another Google update, and then, oh shit, back to square one. And so, you know, I don't want to be too black and white on this, but, you know, I frankly am very, very tired of chasing the Google algorithm. And I've been saying probably for the past 2 years, we need to focus on loyalty, 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 and establishing direct relationships with our audience so that they want to come to see what the strategist recommends, what The Verge says is the best headphones, and they should want to do that without having to go through search, having to go through Google. And so that's obviously difficult to do, and there's a lot of things in motion to try to get at that. One example is we are pushing really, really hard on email email acquisition to get way more email subscribers, to have a more direct relationship with them. We feel like we are really good on the email platform. And so doing a lot on that channel, way more than in the past. But I think what this has meant is doing more with less. I frankly am okay getting less traffic if I can get the right type of traffic and if I can make each click count just as much as it would have had I gotten all of that other traffic from Google search as well. And so it's now imperative that every visit, every click is actually meaningful and can have the best opportunity to monetize at the highest level, because that traffic is getting harder and harder to come by, as most publishers know. And so that's why there was even more of an urgency for me to find this solution. The Strategist and The Verge and the Pop Sugar folks, they write great content. I need people to be able to come visit, and when they click and convert, to be able to benefit off of that. And so there's only so much resources I could put into optimizing for that. As Cornelia said, we need to do what we're good at. And that is not tinkering around on our back end, trying to develop inference models like his team is working on. We're going to leave that to the engineering experts who can figure that out. It's also not in our best interest to be constantly swapping out links left and right. We need to do what we're best at, which is producing great content and forging some good relationships with key brands for strategic relationships. And so we've really made a big effort to focus on loyalty, as I said, and add automation and add efficiency as much as possible, and kind of that allows our team to get back to what we are supposed to be focused on. And right now there's just so much to try to solve for with all of the changing dynamics in our industry. And so I need every single person on my team to be focused on how we grow this business in a very different environment, whether that is Google Zero or Google is just a small part of the pie. And so automation and these types of tools are even more important for times like this.
It's amazing how many publishers I've talked to who have said, you know what, like being free of Google allows me to focus on what matters in a way I hadn't kind of realized. Cornelius, is that a conversation you have with publishers about, the shifting Google landscape and how you can help them be more efficient?
What we noticed is that the Google zero or not zero conversation has almost become academic. It may not actually be zero, it may still be relevant, but the most forward-thinking publishers we talk to, like Camilla at Vox, like the Voucher Calls folks at Ziff Davis, like Microsoft, they've parked that debate because the imperative of what there is to do is very clear, regardless of whether Google will be an actual, fat zero or somewhere there. It's really three things, and that is there's quite a unanimous view on that across the industry. As Camilla says, what I think Vox runs under loyalty: continue producing powerful content or offer curation that's unique for the audience, that keeps the audience coming back. Crucial. That's the most powerful thing you can do when search traffic or AI referral traffic or whatever, any dependence doesn't serve you well anymore. Focus commercial efforts on inking true performance partnerships with brands that are a great fit, and automate the rest. And implementing sort of next-gen click optimization, because on the yield question, as Camilla says, no publisher, even the finest ones with the greatest scale, can afford anymore to let a single click go to waste. And I think those three things are what set the leading ones of the pack apart. And what we do see, while all of this is a doubtful conversation for some, those that get these parts right actually have a great and growing affiliate business at present and in the future. So we do see a bright future for commerce publishing.
You say commerce publishing, and obviously we're talking to Camilla, but you've mentioned a few different types of publishers as well. Do you work with publishers across the spectrum, or like who are the people who most benefit from this relationship?
We view this to be four types, really. Really crucial pillar, of course, the content publishers like Vox Media with New York Mag and so on. There are the deals and coupon players, some of which have weathered the Google fallout particularly well, actually. There's a whole number of properties like, let's say, voucher codes, for instance, who have such strong organic traffic that unlike some of their peers, they're doing very well in that space. Of course, we all know some white label solutions and sort of pure domain rental has suffered, but that is still a space where value is getting created for users, where real organic large audiences are, and we're very happy and proud to be serving some of the leading players there. There are the leading names in buy now, pay later platforms. And an emerging field, of course, is large language models, Gen AI. Some people are, looking at, for instance, there's our partner Opera, which is equipping its, specialty browsers with really interesting Gen AI applications that actually go very much in that case hand in hand with great content portals rather than seeing themselves as a complete replacement of the traditional publishing model. So that's the fourth pillar there.
It's interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about the relationship with Opera or the AI?
So let's speak generally about that place. If we look at browsers, where, for instance, we're also working with Microsoft Edge, the goal actually of these players is to strengthen the open web and to augment it in the right places and to create great experiences and frames for consuming content rather than, playing the be all and end all singular interface. Opera, for instance, is interesting because there's a very strong specialty focus in gaming, for instance. Microsoft on the Edge side has a strong shopping case, a strong shopping canvas. So you do see real growth in supposed niches where, for instance, browser players cater incredibly well to specific audiences, and they do niche jobs, but they do them incredibly well. And suddenly you see a scale that you wouldn't have expected there. And that's, I think, also a model that we see some of the strongest content publishers follow, to say we are likely not going to be all things to all people on the internet. We need to be incredibly good at some things. New York Mag is, I think, a great example of this that we talked about earlier, with a loyal and dedicated following that knows exactly what they get from there. And I think that's a very generalizable takeaway from what makes online business models really succeed. Know exactly what you are to whom.
I'm going to apologize because we didn't prep this, but I'm now just curious. How close are we to the future where I ask, an LLM where I should go to dinner on Thursday night in New York. It provides a recommendation from Grub Street, and I say, make me the reservation, and you've supplied the link that allows for the credit or the commission. I mean, is that something we're pretty close to?
I think that's something we're incredibly close to. What I think is still totally out there in the open is we really don't see a future where that experience that you just described lives purely in a single chat interface. We think great content can be the launch pad to an experience like that. And we think this kind of integrated AI augmented experience will not always be initiated by a blank chatbot line, but it's a great way, for instance, for if I have great content that's unique to my audience, to say, off the back of this content that I'm best at supplying, let's go back to New York Mag. Let's start both the conversation and the transaction off the back of this. We think this will be an incredibly widely distributed kind of experience.
I mean,
I guess to even
yeah, go ahead.
just to take that even further, I think it's very, very likely that not too far in the distant future, because we know our users and whether we are interacting with them on ChatGPT, but maybe it's on our own app, the New York Mag app or whatever else it might be, we can also serve them up shopping recommendations and like know where they prefer to shop, right? So there are tons of people that buy beauty products that are so loyal and will buy at Sephora as much as possible because they are a Rouge member and they have to maintain a certain level. And so they will buy everything there. There's some that are purely going to be impacted by price only. And so wherever the cheapest is, that's where they're going to go. And so we all have our different preferences and our loyalties. And so knowing which merchant at the user level would prefer to shop at, those are all highly customizable things that right now we're not serving up as a user experience, but I think those are easily things that we can automate and have AI technology be able to get much smarter at being able to predict. And then not just like where you prefer to shop, but obviously the next is personalized recommendations based on what you looked at, what content you've consumed and read and clicked on. And so I'm kind of excited to see what all this kind of spells out to, because I think there's so many capabilities and possibilities to make the shopping experience online easier and smarter, more efficient, and maybe even more fun, where you could actually discover stuff that you didn't know you needed.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, is it just an extension of how we started this lunch and learn? It's, hey, you're going to have all these different, options in all these different places, which is going to create, more opportunity for users, but more operational challenges for publishers. Is it worrisome in that way at all, or you confident that there's an operational solution in there somewhere?
I feel like for myself, I mean, we have there's a lot of kind of encouragement, I would say even like push here within Vox Media to embrace AI technology as much as possible, add efficiencies to our workflows, solve things that are tedious and things that take up too much of your time, and make more time for strategic thinking and problem solving and creative thinking as well. And so I'm not going to say, technology, AI, LLMs are going to solve all my problems. Not at all. But I feel like there is a lot of pathways to solving operational issues out there. There's a lot more options. And it also doesn't have to be super cumbersome and super expensive either. I think in the past with publishers, there are times where we chose not to work with certain vendors and certain partners because it was just going to be too expensive. And then that gets down the path of like, we're going to do it ourselves. We're going to build it ourselves. And then what do you know? It's going to take months and months and months. It's going to take way longer. And it doesn't, turn out the way you imagined either. And so I'm hoping those days of kind of like inefficiencies and getting kind of stuck in our own ways and being kind of limited to what our options are a little bit in the past, but we shall see.
Cornelius, could you spend a little bit of time getting into the nuts and bolts here? I think we've talked like big picture about, why, being able to automatically move links to more profitable networks is obviously good for the publisher. And if you can do that in an automated way, reduces costs as well. Can you just talk about how you're doing this and how you built this, the nuts and bolts of how this actually works?
I'm very happy to. Because I think we just also talked about the flying saucers model of AI, what will be possible someday.
Right, let's get this back to
what
what
really motivates us is the fact that AI is here, right? This is what we're talking about is right here. And, we within, less than 2 weeks, the AI that we have in production does double-digit revenue lifts to the affiliate operations of our partners, like we saw with Vox. And what's behind it, to your question, is briefly touched on the fact earlier, there isn't real-time bidding. I can't just solicit a bid on an ad exchange for affiliate clicks. That centralized exchange doesn't exist. What I can do with the sufficient scale is to feed a model with ongoing information. I constantly reserve 0.5% of all clicks to spread them across the different networks to find out at this moment in time for a user in this region coming from this device, for this merchant, this product, what bid is coming out there. That way you feed the inference model with ongoing information and get smarter from the first minute onwards. And within days, it's able to predict in a way neither qualitatively nor quantitatively any human could, where for Mike logging in from New York for that Yankees hat, where exactly should I be sending him? And that's something where we're aching to help publishers because it's not a thing. Let's have a strategy meeting about maybe using a bit more AI in Q4. This is not bleeding money next month and helping create better yield next month. And one thing, how we work, that's the technology behind it. Commercially, what we've said, it's very nice to promise these things, but let us take the risk. We're so confident in this revenue uplift that we can deliver that we say, we guarantee you this is never going to be a cost center. We don't run an expensive implementation, then hope for the best. This is only ever going to be a profit center because the costs are never going to exceed anywhere near the revenue uplift that this creates.
So it's
So that's
not
how we think about it commercially.
technically real-time bidding, but it kind of approximates real-time bidding because you're going out and learning, and it might be the future of real-time bidding. This is the kind of thing that I think Affiliate has talked about for ever since I've been involved in it, is how do you match buyers and sellers more efficiently? And so it sounds like we're starting to get there. One thing we haven't really talked about is the consumer experience here, the reader experience. Is this also kind of helping the reader, get more useful information, Camilla?
I mean, right now, the way we're working with NucleusLinks, I don't think the consumer would notice any difference, but we are talking to them and working with them on trying to solve the age-old issue of swapping out links when things are out of stock, and shifting those around so that you're not landing on dead pages or out of stock pages and things like that. And then, as I said before, like looking kind of towards the future of optimizing the user experience so that we can serve up where you prefer to shop and providing that link rather than us just kind of, because we could select, the best, highest EPC on what we think it might, but there's sometimes where we just can't take into consideration that, hey, this user is a Sephora VIB member. And so, those are types of things that we want to get smarter about. And I think having more of those direct reader user connections, first party data, and all of that will help us get smarter and help us to figure out how to deliver that kind of an ideal personalized user experience.
And before I ask Cornelius, if you're listening, this is a great time to ask a question. We're probably going to wrap up here in the next few minutes. After that, we'll kind of put the recording on Slack and we'll make sure we email it to everyone as well. But just a heads up that your time is now. So Cornelius, I'm curious about the user experience. Is this also doing a better job of matching kind of consumer intent and advertiser needs?
So in the first step, we are very adamant. It creates no extra hurdle at all in the user experience. The yield optimization part, the user shouldn't even notice anything. It's just our engine in the service of the publisher routing the link a smarter way without changing anything to the hopefully very smooth experience of learning about the product, getting to checkout, buying it, getting it sent. We are deliberately incredibly noiseless in the background. Users shouldn't notice us as we make the publisher help them make more money. Second part, as Camilla mentions, absolutely broken links, stockouts, all those things are sort of more of the ops suite of NucleusLinks. Yes, we help, publishers make sure broken links don't only crop up when we see on one of 7 revenue dashboards that something isn't quite right and we go to investigate, rather find out in real time. And that buzzkill of an error link, we solve that automatically and in real time. And maybe as a little sneak peek, just for the ones on here, one of the hats I do wear at Affinity as well is on the M&A side. We are in the process of growing the group and the product with something which we find incredibly exciting, which has a direct impact on the user experience, which is AI-driven shoppable widgets. Rather than just have a product carousel with 3 prices, have self-creating buying guides matched exactly to the content of the publisher, to the voice of the publisher, helping the editorial teams create better product content faster, having price histories included, merchant comparisons. That is something where if somebody's interested in that, I'd be very happy for you to reach out to me directly or on the Slack channel, and we'll share more in the coming weeks where our growth of the product suite goes there.
So this is me going to the Vulture and saying, "What should I watch tonight?" and then saying, "Well, what are you in the mood for?" And then figuring it
Let's
out.
tell you what you're in the mood for. Exactly.
or just tell me what I feel like to know. We do have a few questions if you guys have time and don't mind a couple here. The first is if a user lands on a set place like say Sephora beauty products, how do you explain why there would be a difference in yield if the merchant has a unified strategy in terms of commission rate or cost sales?
Fantastic question. There is an assumption here within this question that there is a unified strategy that knows exactly where to put which budgets, resulting in a perfect market of bids. That is a fair assumption for affiliates in the past. It just no longer holds as a base assumption. You can, through CPC, through performance, through secondary networks, access so many different budgets, and I briefly touched on it earlier, that can be search, social, display, performance, and affiliate budgets ending up in the available to Camilla and team at Vox Media through affiliate links that are in fact not steered centrally with a unified strategy at Sephora. And that fact that so many different pots of spending end up and become accessible to a publisher who's out there, who understands this, who's ready to take advantage of this, creates the dynamism among the different sales. So it's the absence of a unified strategy, which makes perfect sense also it's not like Sephora is doing something wrong. It's just the dynamic of the market that turns out that way and creates the upside potential for those who are ready to capture it.
And you're not replacing the networks or the CPC networks. It's more just optimizing, right?
Correct. All the networks remain in place. The commercial relationship between publisher and network remains in place. It's just about on a click-by-click level, which ones do I pick in that moment?
Yeah, I think also just to add on to that, I mean, I'm sure there are some merchants that do have a unified strategy and want to keep commissions like totally stable across the board. What I've been seeing more and more of, and what my biz dev team has been seeing more and more of, is the budget is just getting allocated in so many different ways. And so the CMO of a Sephora or wherever has so many different places where they are trying to see where they're going to get the most qualified clicks, the best customers, the most loyal customers. They may have certain specific types of customers they're looking for as well. And so that could live in performance, the affiliate side, general marketing, test budgets, search budgets. And with so many changes going on in our industry right now, and differences of where you might want to spend your money, you want to make sure that you could take advantage of wherever these brands are, where they're planning. There's no way I'm going to keep track of where Sephora is allocating their money, right? And so why not make it possible so I could tap in here, there, and there, no matter where they decide to kind of divvy up their marketing budget.
I mean, the proliferation of affiliate budgets into every channel and silo is a whole other conversation that adds a whole nother layer of complexity that we could talk about here, but don't have
100%.
to. We have another question. How do you manage merchant concerns with clicks being routed away from their direct CPA relationships and routed through other sources via NucleusLinks? I think we kind of just addressed this, but it's worth reiterating, I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Camilla.
Oh, I was going to say, I think what this question is getting at, if I'm going to take a stab, is that publishers do have direct relationships with certain retailers, merchants, where we might be, where it might be beneficial for the relationship for us to send direct clicks through their main affiliate network. There are certain commitments we might have with certain brands where it behooves us to go through kind of their preferred channel. Those are things we are definitely taking into consideration. Just to clarify, we're not sending all of our merchant links through the NucleusLinks network. Right now, I think we're at 76 merchants that we are sending through NucleusLinks. That number may very well grow. But there are definitely going to be some that we won't send through the network because of various different strategic relationships and commitments we have in place.
And just to add to that, Camilla, we are entirely advising our partners to do just that. If your publisher has a great direct relationship, there is no need to veer away from that. What Nucleus is great at is saying you focus on your 20, 50, or even 100 direct relationships that are incredibly well negotiated, very powerful. Don't mess with those. We help you manage the long tail that your team couldn't possibly manage at this level of optimization. We don't at all want to mess with the direct relationships. One thing to add, one thing that is powerful to the teams in managing those relationships, what a publisher can always do is something we call allocation and send just 1% of the traffic, no meaningful number, through NucleusLinks and find out, is there occasionally a higher EPC to be had than the direct CPA that's been negotiated? That's a wonderful thing to arm the sales team with and go back to Sephora, whoever it is with, and say, you know what, we think we have a great relationship. We want to keep it a great relationship. We see there's occasionally higher bids out there. Can we talk about the commission we have here in a very, on the eye-to-eye level, in a very partnership-driven way, so we can deliver data to make those partnerships, those direct partnerships greater? We do not aim to replace them.
Couple more questions here. And Camilla, this one I'm sure you can't give specific data to, but a good question nonetheless is, in your experience, how measurable has been the efficiency gains from AI at Vox Media, either in terms of operational time savings or revenue?
It's a little bit difficult to really put a quantitative measure to it, but I think in this specific case of working with NucleusLinks, I mean, we have quantifiable measures. Before we even started going live with NucleusLinks, we set kind of KPI success metrics of the hurdles we wanted to clear. And so we wouldn't have moved forward beyond our trial phase if those success metrics had not been met. And so in that way, we are setting quantifiable goals of what we'd like to see and what we expect. But in terms of like overall efficiency gains from operational time savings, that's a little bit difficult to do, but something that I would like to try to figure out.
And another one here, this is an interesting question about communication. How do you communicate working with the affiliate teams at a direct brand that wants to traffic via CJ versus pushing them to a CPC network? Is that a communication, or is that just automated? And is that a difficult conversation or an easy one, or how does that?
I think it's great fodder for negotiating. I think it's great fodder.
Yes, I would agree. And final question here from John Toski. Hey, John, our one question asker who was brave enough to put his name. So we got to give him a shout out. What has to happen on the merchant side to actually get a unified strategy? I suspect they don't just realize that these trade-offs are available to publishers today. I think it's for both of you.
Yeah. So let me just take a stab at that. I don't think we ought to assume that either networks or merchants are best off saying, this is our EPC, our single EPC that is available to everybody at every one time, and it's out there, and just go get it no matter who you go through. Those fractional bidding technologies that some of the networks have started using on behalf of the merchant clients to say, we bid only dynamically on X number of clicks on at Y EPC, which is highly dynamic at different times. I think that's a outcome of also AI being in place there, that the networks have become so intelligent at bidding that they know exactly how to put in place a bidding strategy that isn't even humanly describable, because it is so dynamic and so automated. And you could argue that serves the brands very well and the merchants. It's just now up to the publishers to keep up with that and be ready to also not lose out by faithfully sending all my traffic one way and hoping for the best, but to arm up and play the same AI game so that both sides are collaborating on an even keel.
I also don't expect on the merchant side for everyone to get to a unified strategy. I don't know how realistic that is. I think there is going to continue to be this allocation and reallocation of marketing budgets and how and where they spend those budgets. There's going to be constant testing and on different networks against different types of publishers, different types of creators, especially with where Google is going and where other platforms are emerging. I suspect the kind of the divvying up of that marketing budget is going to get even more confusing potentially down the road. And so I don't really have a lot of conviction that there's going to be a unified strategy for at least for the bigger, more kind of the more sophisticated merchants. And so more the reason for, needing to kind of like stay atop all of that and be opted into as many different networks as possible so that on the publisher end, we could take advantage of that. If they exist here and then tomorrow they exist over on this network, I want to be able to make sure we're here and there on a timely basis.
Even more need for NucleusLinks, it sounds like. And John said good answer and even better answer. So appreciate it. Well, listen, Camilla and Cornelius, thanks so much for joining us. And thanks to the 100 or so people who joined us this afternoon. We had a great crew and excellent questions from everyone. As a follow-up here, there will be a recording of this. We'll send an email to everyone who registered, so you'll have a recording whether you were here or not. We'll also post it in the Slack group where we'll be gathering to answer any extra questions. And if you don't have an invitation to that Slack group, please let me know, reach out directly to me. And Cornelius, what's the best way for the audience to reach out to NucleusLinks to learn more?
You can sign up for a free 4-week trial within days at nucleuslinks.ai. And I'd be happy to hear from any of you via cornelius@affinity.com, LinkedIn, or indeed the Slack channel.
And we'll make sure to put that all in the article around this recording, so you'll have that information. So thank you for everyone for joining, and I'm sure we'll all chat soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks all.
Bye.